Happy Slursday, everyone. Before I get into today's Slursday, I just want to check out this snare feature real quick.
Around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their...
So for this very special 20th Slursday today, we're looking at the Clara Vanguard 1998 snare feature. And now before I dig into this snare feature, I feel like I need to give some background onto why this 98 drumline has a special place in my heart. So I marched in the 02, 03, 04 SCV snare line, and I remember we always looked up to this line. They were just super aggressive, and I believe they won drums that year. They got a 9.9 out of 10 in percussion on finals night, and they just played some really, really cool music. Just aside from that snare feature we're going to look at, just if you haven't had the chance, check out some late 90s Vanguard. It's prime Jim Casella writing. He's just, the way he orchestrates everything, it's just this sort of refreshing concert sort of approach where everything just like integrates so well. And on top of that, I remember my freshman year of high school, my drum instructor took us to the Ypsilanti Regional, DCI Regional. It used to be a thing back in the late 90s. And I remember watching this drum line warm up, and it was just so inspiring. The following year, I ended up marching drum corps with the Kiwanis Cavaliers, so it kind of was one of the few lines that helped inspire me to march the activity. So that's why this line has a really special place in my heart, and I have the utmost respect for all those guys who are a part of that line. So the main measure we're going to be looking at is this last measure of the snare feature. Although there's a lot of other things to appreciate in this snare feature. For instance, the very beginning of the snare feature that has accented 16th notes into a unaccented triplet diddle. So difficult. And on top of that, these guys were marching half time in the snare feature, also with a dead count going into single time. I mean, it's just insane. But we'll mainly focus on this last measure because that's where all the slurry goodness is. So this last measure looks insanely complicated. So we're going to start by breaking it down to its most basic, non-slurred form and take the steps to sort of reverse engineer this measure. So as you can see here, we have 2 beats of a fairly standard triplet tap roll pattern, followed by a standard 6-stroke roll pattern ending with a shot. Taking it slowly, it sounds like this. Now, we've learned in a couple previous Slursday episodes that you can take these standard 6-stroke rolls and slur them into a sextuplet pattern with a right, left, left, right, right, left sticking. With that sort of interpretation, that pattern would sound like this. Now, in both of these cases, you can hear a rhythmic space or silence between the last accent of the second beat and the first accent of the third beat. So what this final version is aiming to do is to take the last accent in the second beat and the 6 notes in the third beat and spread them out evenly over that span of time while maintaining the same sticking and accent pattern. So the way that ratio works is that you have 7 notes spread evenly starting on the last triplet partial of beat 2 and all the way through beat 3. Since you can fit 3 eighth note triplets in the span of a beat, we're just saying that those 7 notes are being spread out over the span of 4 eighth note triplets. So you have your 1 triplet followed by 3 more in that beat 3. So here's an example of that played slowly. So truth be told, I had to do some pretty complicated engraving tomfoolery to make this rhythm work in my music notation program. But I don't think there's really any other way to notate it. So with that said, let's take another listen to this snare feature with the notation scrolling by as well. So there you have it, the Clara Vanguard 1998 snare feature. Now, I did hear a rumor through some of my sources that it's possible we have kind of like a chicken or the egg type of situation in terms of how this was constructed. So the rumor is that the original snare feature was kind of written similar to some of the breakdown measures I had, where it's either that just regular 6-stroke roll or that sort of 6-tuplet 6-stroke roll. And the hard thing about playing something like that, these guys are scooting it around 190 beats a minute. So something like that's really tough to play in time. Like playing 16th note rolls at 190 is very tough to do and play in time, especially as a snare line. So the rumor is that they may have kind of fudged the space beforehand to try and get to that beat 4 on time. So rather than having that, they were kind of like slurring into it. So the idea is that they kind of rewrote it so that it kind of reflected the interpretation they were playing. So either way, it's pretty impressive the way they were able to do that. And like I said, I've got nothing but respect for those guys in the 98 snare line. And truly an incredible drum line, incredible music by Jim. And I was lucky enough to get his blessing to use the snare feature for this Slursday. So thank you so much, Jim. Thank you so much to all the guys who marched that line, and I think some of the people who might have been a part of that snare feature and maybe tweaking it. I got to give a shout out to those guys, Murray Gussick, and I think Chip Webster might have done some writing as well. In any case, hope you all have a happy Slursday. We'll see you next time.